Imagine a newly liberated colony celebrating freedom, only to find that their supposed ally becomes their occupier. It's dawn on February 4th, 1899, outside Manila. The air is cool. Filipino revolutionary forces stir. Suddenly, shots ring out. A war begins, not just for territory, but for identity, justice, and self-rule. This is the story of the Philippine-American War, a story that many forget, yet one that changed the course of two nations. What drove the conflict? Who fought it? And what lasting legacy did it leave behind? Stay with me as we explore a war born of hope, betrayal, and empire. For over 300 years, the archipelago of the Philippines had been under Spanish colonial rule. By the late 1890s, a strong nationalist movement led by figures such as José Rizal and Emilio Aguinaldo emerged, demanding reform, representation, and later full independence. In 1898, the United States defeated Spain in the Spanish-American War, and under the Treaty of Paris, December 1898, Spain ceded the Philippines to the U.S. without meaningful Filipino representation in the negotiations. The Filipinos had declared their independence on June 12, 1898, believing the U.S. would support their aspirations. But Washington had other ideas. Why did war erupt? On one hand, U.S. policymakers viewed the Philippines as a gateway to Asia, a strategic naval and commercial outpost, and believed in the civilizing mission of empire. On the other, Filipino revolutionaries led by Aguinaldo felt betrayed. They expected independence, not another foreign ruler. When U.S. forces arrived and assumed control, tensions escalated. The spark was ignited on February 4th, 1899, when clashes broke out near Manila between American troops and Filipino forces. The early months of fighting resembled a conventional conflict. Filipino forces attempted to meet the U.S. Army in regular battle. For example, U.S. columns advanced on the rebel capital of Malolos in March, capturing it and cutting off key communications lines. Despite bravery and resolve, Filipino troops were outgunned, out-trained, and lacked resources. By late 1899, the conventional approach was proving costly and ineffective. Facing defeat in open combat, Filipino resistance shifted into guerrilla mode. Small bands, knowledge of terrain, hit-and-run tactics defined this phase. American forces responded with brutal counterinsurgency methods. Zones of protection, village burnings, forced relocations, and internment. The cost was tremendous. By some estimates, over 200,000 Filipino civilians died. From violence, famine, disease. The war dragged on until the capture of Aguinaldo in March 1901 dealt a symbolic blow. On July 4, 1902, the U.S. declared the war officially over. Numbers tell part of the story. Roughly 4,200 American soldiers were killed during the war. Filipino combatant deaths ranged in the tens of thousands. Filipino civilian casualties soared because of disease, starvation, and war-related disruption. But behind the figures were real lives. Villages destroyed, families torn apart, hopes shattered. The war raised questions about the morality of imperialism and the price of progress. At war's end, the Philippines became a U.S. territory, ruled by American military governors until civil government was introduced. The incident marked a turning point for the U.S., from continental power to overseas empire. For the Filipinos, their struggle for independence would continue. They eventually achieved full independence in 1946. The legacy of the war shaped Philippine national identity and its relationship with the U.S. This conflict also sparked debates in America about imperialism, race, and democracy. The Anti-Imperialist League, for example, opposed U.S. annexation of the Philippines on moral grounds. You might ask, this war happened over 120 years ago. Why care now? Because it raises issues still urgent today: foreign intervention, national self-determination, civilian cost of war, empire versus democracy. It reminds us that freedom is not a gift handed down. It is fought for. It warns that great powers' decisions reach far beyond borders. And it shows that small nations' struggles often get overshadowed in world history. Yet they're vital. The Philippine-American War was not a splendid little war. It was messy, brutal, morally complex, and consequential. A newly freed Philippine nation confronted a rising power that wished to mold them into an outpost of empire. Lives were lost, dreams deferred, but from that conflict emerged a national identity and a test of American ideals. So next time you think of American imperialism, the dawn of the 20th century, or the price of war, remember February 4th, 1899? Remember the struggle in the Philippines. Remember that the cost of freedom is often unseen. If you found this story compelling and want to dive deeper into forgotten chapters of history, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And let's keep discovering together.